we are coming up to a general election, and it would be absolute insanity to start changing leaders yet again.
Now, look, I mean, anyone reading the newspapers this morning might be thinking to themselves, what on earth is going on in the Conservative Party? You're not far out from an election, and there is huge amounts of talk about replacing the Prime Minister. What's gone wrong?
Well, to be honest with you, quite a lot of us are sitting here reading newspapers and wondering what on earth has been going on over the weekend. I mean, look at clearly we've had a terrible week, and I think there have been a number of things which have upset people, not least how central office and how the number 10 have responded to things like the Frank Hester appalling comments of racism against Diane Abbott. But at the end of the day, we are coming up to a general election, and it would be absolute insanity to start changing leaders yet again. As you so rightly said, I was a very early backer of Rishi Sunak. I was also an early backer of Jeremy Hunt. So as far as I'm concerned, I got my dream team in number 10 and number 11. So I would, want us to get on, stop infighting, provide a united front, and get into a general election actually as soon as possible. I prefer the 2nd of May general election.
So you think it was a mistake to rule that out, then, I assume?
I think there's a lot of good reasons why you should go early. Apart from anything else, it looks confident that you're on the front foot. I think also, we've got local elections coming up at the same time. We've got a lot of activists who are going to be out. I think we'll probably do better locally as well as, the general election if we go early. But I think if we leave it too long, this sense of rot, which is being perpetrated by those who want to change Rishi Sunak or who are scheming or who are coming out and complaining about him. The longer you leave that, the more that settles into the wider public, and the more they sort of think, at the end of the day, if the Conservative Party doesn't like itself, why should I, as a voter, like the Conservative Party?
I mean, is there anything that the party can do? Is there anything that Rishi Sunak can really do to stop that from happening at this point? Because it does feel, I mean, you've just described it as having your dream team, but it's a bit of a nightmare, really, at the moment. Is there anything the Prime Minister can do to turn this round?
I think what every political party needs to do is if they come out to general election, is create a vision for the future. So what is the vision of a Conservative government under Rishi Sunak with his own mandate going forward for the next 5 years? That's the key thing. If you look back to 1997, several months before that general election, Tony Blair was I think he had a net approval rating of 40% or something. And there was an idea of what a Labour government was going to look like then. Back in 2010, again at a similar time, there was David Cameron was 10 or 15 points net approval rating, and there was more of a vision about the big society and all this kind of stuff, and what it was going to look like, and sorting out the financial crisis. This time around, it's difficult to know what that vision is. Look, I mean, we can be competent, we can try and deliver better economy and all that kind of stuff, but I think a lot of people would expect that to be the normal things that a government should do. Stopping the boats is something which we should be doing anyway. It's not a vision. So I think creating that vision is what we need to do, and get behind the Prime Minister and that vision, and provide a united front.
I mean, can you explain to people who are listening this morning who might be asking themselves, it sounds like a similar question to what you're asking, but why on earth are we starting to hear people talking about replacing the Prime Minister? What is the logic, do you think, from those people who are genuinely talking about it?
In all honesty, Kate, I have absolutely no idea. It's absolutely insane. Of course, it's a bad idea, and everybody knows it's a bad idea. To be honest with you, I've never been a plotter, so I'm not, sort of in the top 10 of the call list of those plotters phoning people up. I've known Penny Mordaunt for 20 years, and I have an immense amount of respect for her, and she certainly hasn't been sidling up to me in the division lobbies asking if I would like to go and have a drink and in her office or anything. Nor so with Kemi Badenoch, or indeed anybody else who's being rumored to be looking for it. But it doesn't make any sense. You of course we can't go into a leadership, even if it's a coronation now, within a few months of a general election. Nobody's going to get to know the new leader, and they're just going to assume that if we change our leader yet again, which will be the 5th Conservative Prime Minister in 14 years, how many more are we going to have in the next 5 years of after a general election if we win it?
Mm.
We of course we've got to get behind Rishi, and as I say, I'm 100% behind him and always will be.
I mean,
But I think Sorry, Kate, go.
No, I was just going to say, Jake Berry told us yesterday. I mean, he was named in the newspapers over the weekend as somebody who was behind these plots. He told us yesterday on Times Radio that Number 10 had been briefing that out about him. He hadn't put that out there, they had. And you mentioned at the start of this interview that, there's been some frustration with the Number 10 operation and the party operation. Does the Prime Minister need to have a clear out of that team inside Downing Street if he's going to get back on the front foot? Is that part of the problem here?
It's an interesting one. I mean, so I'm not hugely close to Number 10. I mean, from time to time, there are occasionally things which just annoy me about the communication stuff. I mean, I think we handled the Hester stuff last week incredibly badly. And, at the end of the day, the news media now moves at 1,000 miles an hour, and everybody feels they've got to catch up with it. And I think if you have a strong on the front foot, communications team in Number 10, they would have grabbed control of that agenda. So it's just little bits that come through. There was something, the briefing notes that went out about Claire Coutinho's speech last week, for example. It was a very good speech and a very important speech, but the briefing notes didn't mention in any of them that we were talking about bringing in new gas-powered fire stations, which, I'm a member of the Energy Security and Net Zero Select Committee. It's really important that you get the facts out, and we weren't getting the facts out. So there's this sort of peculiar thing that's going on. Look, as far as Jake is concerned, Jake's a good mate, actually. And I've had a couple of occasions when, if he wanted to try to persuade me to back a new leader, he would have been able to do it last week. And he absolutely didn't. I mean, I do not think that Jake is a plotter. So it does sound incredibly peculiar that this rumor is going around at any level. And if it is Number 10, then I think they're barking up the wrong tree, frankly.
Just finally, what's your message to those plotters in your party this week?
Well, no one's going to vote for a divided party. It's always the case that nobody votes for a divided party. Plotting is not going to make a difference. We're going to go into the general election behind Rishi Sunak, and we need to demonstrate that we're 100% behind him. If you look across the Labour Party, the left wing are being incredibly disciplined at the moment. In the Labour Party, they're not causing Keir Starmer a problem. Why have we got plotters? Of course, it's a stupid thing to do.
Mark Garnier, Conservative MP, thank you for joining us this morning.
He used the phrase absolute insanity twice in that interview. I thought this was a really intriguing line and must be true. If the Conservative Party doesn't like itself, why should voters like the Conservative Party? And that's a sense that you get when you read the papers, you see the briefing. It's a party that doesn't like itself. It doesn't know what itself is. And therefore, how do you vote for it?
Well, I think that actually, what you just said there, the last part is also incredibly important, because remember, Mark Garnier is a supporter of Rishi Sunak. He's somebody who, backs the Prime Minister, who doesn't want to see him removed. And yet his message there to us was, we need a vision. Stopping the boats is not a vision. Stopping the boats is a policy that the government should be pursuing, whatever happens. We need to have a vision to pitch to the country. And I think what was really evident there is that is a loyal Tory MP still struggling with the fact that they don't have anything to sell.